The morning sun peeked through the tall glass windows of the mansion, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. William Blake stood at the edge of the vast living room, coffee cup in hand, watching the ocean waves crash against the rocky shore below. The view was breathtaking, worth every penny of the $23 million he'd paid for this clifftop property. Yet it brought him no joy. At 40, William had achieved what most people only dreamed of. His software company, Blake Tech Solutions, had revolutionized the medical records industry, making him a fortune that grew larger with each passing year. Business magazines featured his success story regularly. Investment firms begged to manage his wealth. Yet behind the facade of success lived a lonely man whose heart remained broken. The sound of wheels on hardwood made William turn. Mrs. Chen, the latest nurse he'd hired, pushed Oliver's specialized wheelchair into the living room. "Good morning, Mr. Blake," she said with professional courtesy. "We've completed the morning routine and therapy exercises." William nodded, taking in the sight of his 2-year-old son. Oliver's small body sat supported by custom padding, his head secured by specially designed braces. The boy's eyes, a deep brown like his mother's, stared ahead without focus. The doctors called it cerebral palsy, a result of complications during birth, the same complications that had taken Anna, William's wife, from them. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen," William replied, his voice carrying the weight of sleepless nights. He approached Oliver's wheelchair, kneeling awkwardly beside it. "Hey, buddy," he whispered, gently touching his son's small hand. As always, there was no response, no smile, no recognition, nothing to indicate Oliver knew his father was there. Mrs. Chen cleared her throat. "His feeding tube needs to be checked at noon, and the physical therapist will arrive at 2. I've prepared his medication schedule for the day." She handed William a printed chart, though they both knew he wouldn't be the one following it. William had staff for that, competent, well-paid professionals who knew more about caring for Oliver than he did. "Right, thank you." William stood retreating to the invisible boundary that separated him from hands-on parenting. He'd learned about Oliver's condition through research and doctors' explanations, but the actual care, the diaper changes, the feedings, the therapy sessions, remained foreign territory. It wasn't that he didn't want to help, he simply didn't know how. Each time he tried, his hands trembled with the fear of causing more harm than good. William's phone buzzed in his pocket, his assistant reminding him of the morning's video conference. "I'll be in my office," he told Mrs. Chen. "Please let me know if anything changes." Both knew nothing would change. It never did. His home office had become his sanctuary and prison. William closed the door behind him, leaning against it for a moment before crossing to his desk. Family photos dotted the bookshelves. Anna laughing on their honeymoon, Anna painting the nursery while pregnant, Anna holding ultrasound pictures with tears of joy in her eyes. Sometimes William wondered if he should put them away, but they were all Oliver would ever have of his mother. The video conference dragged on for hours. William spoke automatically about market projections and expansion plans, his mind constantly drifting to the little boy in the other room. When the call finally ended, he didn't start on the mountain of emails waiting for his attention. Instead, he pulled up the file he'd been reviewing last night. Another medical study about children with cerebral palsy, another experimental treatment that insurance wouldn't cover but that his money could easily afford. A knock at the door interrupted his reading. William's sister Lily entered without waiting for permission. Unlike the staff who treated the mansion like a hospital, Lily brought life with her wherever she went. Today she wore bright yellow pants and carried a bag of fresh pastries from the bakery in town. "Working through lunch again?" she asked, dropping into the chair across from his desk. "Mrs. Chen let me in. She also told me this is the 4th day you've skipped breakfast." William shrugged. "I'm not hungry." "You're not living either," Lily countered, pushing the pastry bag toward him. "Eat something before you disappear completely." William took a pastry more to stop her nagging than from actual hunger. "I'm fine, Lily, just busy." "You're not fine, and neither is Oliver with that robot of a nurse taking care of him." William frowned. Mrs. Chen is highly qualified. Her references, I don't care about her references, Lily interrupted. I care that your son hasn't had a real connection with anyone since Anna died. Mrs. Chen treats him like a medical project, not a little boy who needs love. The words stung because they echoed William's own unspoken thoughts. What am I supposed to do? I've hired the best specialists money can buy. Maybe that's the problem, Lily said softly. You're trying to solve this with money, but what Oliver needs can't be bought. William stood, pacing to the window. Below, he could see the garden Anna had designed but never lived to see completed. I don't know how to help him, he admitted, his voice barely audible. Every time I look at him, I see her. And I see my failure. Lily joined him at the window, her hand gentle on his shoulder. You haven't failed, Will. You're just lost, and that's okay. But it's time to find your way back for both your sakes. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages. I might know someone who could help, not another nurse or therapist. Someone different. William raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Different how? Her name is Elena Martinez. She worked with my friend's nephew. He has autism. The family says she changed their lives completely. She doesn't have fancy degrees or impressive certifications, but she has something special. A gift for connecting with children others have given up on. Oliver's condition is physical, not... Stop putting him in boxes, Lily cut in. He's not just his diagnosis. He's your son, and he deserves someone who sees him that way. She held out her phone, showing a message with Elena's contact information. At least talk to her. What do you have to lose? William wanted to argue, to explain the complex medical routines Oliver required, the specialized knowledge needed for his care. But looking at the message on Lily's phone, he felt something he hadn't experienced in months. A flicker of hope, however faint. Later that afternoon, after Mrs. Chen announced she would be leaving at the end of the month, the fourth caregiver to resign in less than a year, William found himself dialing Elena's number. As the phone rang, he gazed out at the ocean. The water stretched endlessly toward the horizon, reminding him of all the possibilities he'd stopped believing in. Hello? A warm voice answered. William took a deep breath. Ms. Martinez? My name is William Blake. I understand you might be able to help my son. William Blake stood at the massive front door of his mansion, checking his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. The interview with Elena Martinez was scheduled for 10 o'clock sharp. It was now 2 minutes past, and William was a man who valued punctuality. Perhaps his sister had been wrong about this woman. Perhaps a small blue car pulled into the circular driveway, looking out of place among the manicured gardens and marble fountains. William watched as a young woman stepped out, wearing a bright floral dress that seemed to capture sunlight. She paused to take in the grandeur of the house, her eyes widening slightly before her face settled into a determined expression. As she approached the door, William noticed she carried only a worn backpack slung over one shoulder. No briefcase, no portfolio, no formal credentials on display. The doorbell chimed, and William opened the door himself, something he rarely did. The household staff exchanged surprised glances from the corners of their eyes. Mr. Blake? The young woman extended her hand. I'm Elena Martinez. I'm so sorry I'm late. There was a turtle crossing the road and I had to make sure he made it safely to the other side. William blinked, momentarily thrown by the unexpected explanation. He shook her hand automatically. A turtle? Yes. Elena smiled warmly. Little things matter, don't they? Those 4 words seemed to hang in the air between them as William led her through the grand foyer. Unlike the other caregivers who had come through these doors, Elena didn't gawk at the expensive artwork or the crystal chandelier. Instead, her attention caught on a small framed photo of Oliver that sat on a side table. Is this your son? She asked, pausing to look more closely. Yes, that's Oliver. William's voice softened slightly. It was taken on his first birthday. Elena studied the photo with genuine interest. He has kind eyes, she said simply. William stared at her, startled by the observation. In all the medical consultations and therapy sessions, no one had ever described any part of Oliver as kind before. They used words like challenged, limited, and delayed. Never kind. "Let's continue to my office," William said, uncomfortable with the sudden tightness in his chest. "We can discuss your qualifications there." But they never made it to the office. As they passed the sunroom where Mrs. Chen sat with Oliver in his wheelchair, Elena stopped abruptly. "May I meet him?" she asked. William hesitated. "The interview first, then." "Please," Elena said gently. "I'd like to introduce myself." Something in her tone made William nod against his better judgment. He led her into the sunroom where the morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. Mrs. Chen looked up from her tablet with a frown of disapproval at the interruption. "Mrs. Chen, this is Elena Martinez. She's here about the caregiver position." William made the introduction stiffly, already second-guessing his decision to have this unconventional woman in his home. Elena barely acknowledged Mrs. Chen. Instead, she walked directly to Oliver's wheelchair and knelt down to his eye level, something William realized he rarely did himself. "Hello, Oliver," she said in a clear, warm voice. "My name is Elena. Your Aunt Lily told me you're an excellent listener, and I can already tell she was right." She spoke to the boy as if he understood every word, as if his inability to respond was merely a detail, not a barrier. Mrs. Chen cleared her throat. "He can't respond verbally. His condition—" "We're just getting acquainted," Elena replied without looking away from Oliver. She reached out slowly, giving the boy time to see, her hand coming before gently touching his small fingers. "It's very nice to meet you." William watched, bewildered, as Elena continued talking to Oliver about the sunshine coming through the windows and how it made patterns on the floor. After a few minutes, she pulled a small kaleidoscope from her backpack and held it up to catch the light, creating colorful patterns that she described to Oliver in vivid detail. "Look how the blue mixes with the purple at the edges," she said softly. "Like the ocean meeting the sky." Was it William's imagination, or did Oliver's eyes track the moving colors? Mrs. Chen seemed equally surprised, her tablet forgotten in her lap. After several minutes, Elena stood and turned to William. "Thank you for introducing us. I'd be happy to continue our interview now." The office interview was unlike any William had conducted before. Elena's resume was thin on professional credentials. She had no nursing degree, no specialized medical training. What she did have was experience working with children with various disabilities, glowing references from families, and an approach that prioritized connection over clinical care. "Oliver needs his medication and therapy, of course," she explained, as William questioned her about her lack of medical background. "But he also needs joy, stories, music. Someone who sees him as a child first, not as a condition to be managed." "Mrs. Chen follows a strict schedule," William countered. "Oliver's care requires precision. And love?" Elena added gently. "Schedules are important, but so is laughter." William frowned. "He doesn't laugh." "Not yet," Elena replied with quiet confidence. By the end of the interview, William was conflicted. Elena lacked the professional qualifications he had insisted upon for Oliver's previous caregivers. Yet there was something about her approach that resonated with him, perhaps because it reminded him of Anna, who had always believed in finding joy in small moments. "I'll need to think about this," he told her as he walked her to the door. Elena nodded. "Of course. But may I ask you something first?" When William nodded, she continued. "What do you want for Oliver? Beyond the best medical care and therapy, what do you want for his life?" The question caught William off guard. No one had asked him that before. Medical specialists discussed prognoses and treatments, not hopes and dreams. "I want—" He paused, surprising himself with the emotion that suddenly clogged his throat. "I want him to be happy, to know he's loved." Elena smiled. "That's where we start then." 3 days later, Elena Martinez moved into the small guest house on William's property and began working with Oliver. From the first day, she upended the Izira, rigid routine Mrs. Chen had established. She sang constantly, everything from children's songs to old rock classics. She took Oliver outside whenever the weather permitted, describing the garden in vivid detail. She read to him for hours, using different voices for each character in the story. William observed from a distance, splitting his time between work, calls and watching the security camera feeds that showed Elena with his son. He told himself he was monitoring her unconventional methods, making sure she wasn't neglecting Oliver's medical needs. But in truth, he was fascinated by the way she treated Oliver, not as a patient, but as a person with thoughts and feelings, and preferences. By the end of the first week, William noticed small changes. Oliver seemed more alert during Elena's animated storytelling. His eyes tracked her movements around the room. During one singing session, William could have sworn he saw Oliver's fingers twitch in time with the music. It's coincidence, he told himself, afraid to hope for more. Just coincidence. But as he watched Elena gently guide Oliver's hand to feel different textures, silk, sandpaper, a feather, he felt something he hadn't experienced since Anna's death. Possibility. William woke to the sound of his phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. Outside, rain lashed against the windows, and the room was filled with the gray light of a stormy Sunday morning. He fumbled for the phone, squinting at the screen. Elena's name flashed across it, his stomach dropped. In the 3 weeks since she'd started working with Oliver, she had never called this early. "Is everything okay?" he answered, already swinging his legs out of bed. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Blake." Elena's voice sounded rough and congested. "I woke up with a fever and terrible cough. I don't think I should be around Oliver today." William ran a hand through his hair, mind racing. Sunday was his one day without scheduled meetings or calls. Still, he had planned to catch up on work, while Elena cared for Oliver as usual. "Of course," he said automatically. "Take care of yourself. I'll handle things here." After hanging up, William stood in the middle of his bedroom, momentarily frozen. He hadn't spent a full day alone with Oliver since he couldn't even remember when. The household staff had Sundays off and the weekend nurse wasn't scheduled until the evening, which meant for the next 8 hours, it would be just him and his son. "I can do this," he muttered to himself, trying to remember Oliver's morning routine. Elena had left detailed instructions in a binder, but William had never actually read them. He'd been content to watch from a distance, telling himself he was too busy with work to get more involved. An hour later, William was no longer confident. Oliver's specialized wheelchair seemed to have more buttons and levers than the cockpit of a plane. The feeding equipment was equally complicated. Every step in what should have been a simple morning routine became a challenge. "Work with me here, buddy," William pleaded as he struggled to secure the straps on Oliver's chair. The boy's body remained stiff, his features unresponsive. William checked his watch. They were already 45 minutes behind Elena's usual schedule. By midday, both father and son were frustrated and exhausted. William had managed to give Oliver his medication, but breakfast had been a disaster, with more food ending up on them than in Oliver. The therapy exercises Elena had described in her notes seemed impossible to replicate. How did she make it look so easy? Rain continued to pour outside, trapping them indoors. William wheeled Oliver into the living room, positioning the chair near the window so they could watch the storm. The silence between them felt heavy, broken only by the drumming of raindrops against glass. "I'm not very good at this, am I?" William said softly, sinking onto the couch beside Oliver's wheelchair. "Your mom would have known what to do. She was good at everything." Oliver's eyes drifted toward the window, his expression unchanged. But something about the moment, the quiet room, the rain, the strange intimacy of their shared helplessness, made William continue talking. "I remember when she found out we were going to have you," he said, surprising himself with the memory. "She was so excited that she painted the nursery that same day. Yellow, because she didn't want to wait to find out if you were a boy or girl." "Yellow is the color of happiness," she said. William glanced at his son, wondering if any of his words were getting through. Elena always talked to Oliver as if he understood everything. Perhaps William thought it was time he tried her methods. He leaned forward, looking directly into Oliver's eyes the way Elena did. "What would you like to do today, buddy? We could listen to music?" Remembering the songs Elena often played, William grabbed his phone and pulled up a playlist. The gentle notes of a piano filled the room, and William found himself describing the rain patterns on the window to Oliver, feeling awkward but persisting anyway. "See how the drops race each other down the glass? That big one just overtook two smaller ones. And look, the wind is making them dance sideways now." As the morning stretched into afternoon, William continued his one-sided conversation, describing everything from the stormy sky to memories of Anna. At one point, he pulled out photos she'd taken, showing them to Oliver and telling stories behind each one. "This was our trip to the mountains before you were born," he explained, holding up a picture of Anna standing at a scenic overlook. "Your mom loved heights. The higher, the better. She said it helped her see the big picture." Then, disaster struck. While attempting to adjust Oliver's position as Elena had shown him, William heard something snap on the specialized therapy equipment that helped support Oliver's back and head. Panic surged through him. The apparatus was custom-made and essential for Oliver's comfort. With trembling hands, William reached for his phone and called Elena. Despite her illness, she answered immediately. "I broke something on Oliver's chair," he confessed, voice tight with anxiety. "I don't know how to fix it, and he looks uncomfortable, and It's okay," Elena interrupted gently. "Turn on your video so I can see." Through the screen, she assessed the situation, then guided William through temporary repairs. There, in the black case beside his chair, there should be an Allen wrench and some backup straps. William followed her instructions, his large hands clumsy compared to her practiced movements. But slowly, with Elena's patient guidance, he managed to stabilize the equipment. "Now slide your hand under his shoulder, gently, and lift just a fraction while you tighten that strap." William did as instructed, suddenly aware of how small and fragile his son felt in his hands. How had he gone so long without holding him like this? "Perfect," Elena said, her voice warm with approval. "You're doing great, Mr. Blake. He trusts you. I can see it in his eyes." William wasn't sure about that, but he thanked her and ended the call, promising she should rest. For the remainder of the afternoon, he found himself becoming more confident with each task. By evening, he had successfully completed Oliver's therapy exercises, managed a much neater feeding, and even given him a bath without major incident. Darkness fell outside. William sat beside Oliver's bed, utterly drained but strangely fulfilled. The day had been harder than any business crisis he'd faced, yet also more rewarding. "Your mom would be proud of us," he said softly, looking at his son's face in the gentle glow of the nightlight. "We figured it out together, didn't we?" For the first time, William didn't retreat to his office after Oliver's bedtime routine. Instead, he pulled a chair closer and simply sat with his son. The silence between them no longer felt like a wall, but a shared space, comfortable and calm. "I miss her every day," William admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I wish she could see you. How strong you are, how hard you try." Tears welled in his eyes, surprising him. "I've been afraid, Oliver. Afraid I couldn't be what you needed. Afraid I'd let you down the way I let her down." As tears streamed down William's face, he felt something against his hand where it rested on the bed. Oliver's small fingers had twitched, brushing against his father's. William froze, hardly daring to breathe. It could have been an involuntary movement. The doctors had said such things happened randomly. But as he watched, Oliver's fingers twitched again, pressing against William's in what felt unmistakably like a deliberate gesture. "Oliver?" William whispered, his heart pounding. "Can you hear me, son?" There was no dramatic transformation, no movie moment miracle. But as William held his son's gaze in the quiet room, something passed between them, something new and fragile and real. And for the first time since Anna's death, William felt a flicker of true hope taking root in his heart. Elena returned to work the following week, her cold finally gone. William met her at the door, something he'd never done before. There was an awkwardness between them now, not uncomfortable, but new. The dynamic had shifted after he'd called her for help with Oliver. "How was your weekend?" she asked, setting down her backpack in the entryway. "Educational," William replied with a small smile. "I broke 2 feeding tubes, flooded the bathroom during his bath, and realized I know nothing about children's television shows." Elena laughed, the sound echoing through the usually quiet house. "But you survived." "We both did," William agreed, "though I think Oliver is relieved to have you back." As they walked toward Oliver's room, William found himself telling Elena about the small moments from their day together. The rain on the windows, the music they'd listened to, the photos he'd shown Oliver. He hesitated before mentioning the final moment. I think he moved his hand toward mine. On purpose. William's voice was uncertain. The doctors always said such movements were just reflexes, but this felt different. Elena's face lit up. "I believe it. He understands more than people think." William wanted to believe it too, though years of medical assessments made him cautious. "I've left my office door open today," he said instead of arguing, "in case you need anything." This small change represented a massive shift. For weeks, William had kept his door firmly closed, protecting himself from both distraction and deeper involvement. Now he found himself listening for Elena's voice throughout the day as she spoke to Oliver, singing songs and telling stories that drifted down the hallway. Around midday, William heard a rustling sound from Elena's direction. Curious, he stepped out of his office to find her in the living room surrounded by craft supplies, colored paper, scissors, glue, and various textured materials. "What's all this?" he asked. Elena looked up, hands covered in glitter. "I made a sensory board for Oliver while I was sick. Now I'm adding the finishing touches." She held up a large board covered with different materials: soft fabric, rough, sandpaper, smooth plastic, and buttons that made various sounds when pressed. "You made this? During your sick days?" William was surprised. Elena nodded. "Sometimes the best ideas come when you're stuck in bed with nothing to do." She smiled at Oliver, who sat in his wheelchair nearby. "I think he'll like exploring the different textures. Touch is a powerful sense." William watched as she completed the project, then carefully held it in front of Oliver, guiding his hand to feel each section. "This is soft like a cloud," she explained, moving his fingers over a patch of cotton. "And this is rough like the bark of a tree." The care and thought behind her homemade gift touched something in William. His company spent millions developing high-tech solutions, yet here was something created from simple materials with nothing but time and attention, the two things he'd always been too busy to give. That afternoon, while on a conference call with investors, William heard unusual sounds from outside. Peering through his office window, he saw something that made him forget the call entirely. Elena had taken Oliver's wheelchair out to the garden that had been unused since Anna's death. "I need to call you back," he told the confused investors, hanging up without waiting for a response. By the time William reached the garden, Elena had positioned Oliver's wheelchair beside a flowering bush where butterflies fluttered among the blossoms. She knelt beside him, describing the colors in vivid detail. "The orange ones are monarchs," she was saying. "See how their wings look like stained glass when the sun shines through them? And that tiny blue one is a spring azure, blue like the sky on the clearest day." William stood quietly, not wanting to interrupt. The garden had been Anna's pride. She'd designed every inch of it before Oliver was born. After her death, William had instructed the gardeners to maintain it, but he never visited. It hurt too much. Elena sensed his presence and looked up. "I hope it's okay that we came out here. The day is too beautiful to stay inside." "It's fine," William said, his voice hoarse. "Anna would have wanted him to see the garden." Elena smiled gently. "Would you like to join us? I was just telling Oliver about the butterflies." To his own surprise, William found himself nodding and moving forward. He knelt on Oliver's other side, feeling the warm sunshine on his back. You know more about butterflies than I do, Elena said encouragingly. Maybe you could tell him about that one? She pointed to a small hummingbird darting between flowers. That's not a butterfly, William corrected automatically. It's a hummingbird. They're the only birds that can fly backward. He turned to Oliver, hesitantly adopting Elena's habit of speaking directly to him. See how fast its wings move? They beat up to 80 times per second. That's why they look blurry. They're moving too fast for our eyes to see clearly. As William spoke, the hummingbird zoomed closer, hovering just a few feet away from Oliver's wheelchair. Its iridescent green feathers caught the sunlight, creating a prism of colors. William continued his impromptu nature lesson, his business voice gradually softening as he pointed out the bird's tiny beak and the way it hovered in midair. And then it happened. As the hummingbird floated directly in front of him, Oliver's mouth twitched. His lips pressed together, then slowly curled upward at the corners, a small but unmistakable smile. William froze, afraid to breathe, lest the moment vanish. Elena, he whispered. Elena, look. She was already watching, tears forming in her eyes. She nodded silently, confirming what William was seeing. The smile lasted only seconds before fading, but it had been real. William felt something break open inside him, a wall he'd built around his heart since Anna's death crumbling in an instant. He smiled, William said in wonder. He actually smiled. Elena nodded, wiping away a tear. He did. She quietly stepped back, giving father and son this moment together. William reached out with a trembling hand and gently touched Oliver's cheek. You liked that little bird, didn't you? He asked softly. Your mother loved them too. She planted these flowers specifically to attract them. The garden suddenly felt alive with Anna's presence, not in a way that brought pain, but comfort. William could almost hear her laughter, feel her hand on his shoulder as she knelt beside them. In that sunlit moment, surrounded by the garden Anna had created, William knew two things with absolute certainty. First, that his son was fully present in his small body, understanding and experiencing the world in ways the doctors had never acknowledged. And second, that something unexpected was happening in his own heart. Feelings he had thought buried forever were awakening again. He glanced at Elena, who stood a respectful distance away, her face reflecting the wonder of the moment they'd just witnessed. She caught his gaze and smiled, a smile as warm and genuine as the one Oliver had just given, and William found himself smiling back, the muscles in his face remembering a joy he'd thought was lost to him forever. Later, as they wheeled Oliver back inside, William found the courage to say what he was thinking. Thank you, he told Elena. Not just for today, but for seeing him, really seeing him, when no one else did, not even me. Elena shook her head. He was always there. Sometimes we just need help finding each other. She touched Oliver's hair, gently, and that smile was all him. He's been waiting to show it to you. That night, after Oliver was asleep, William stood at the windows overlooking the garden. The day's wonder still lingered in his mind. His son's smile as precious as any business success he'd ever achieved. And alongside it, another feeling taking root. One he wasn't quite ready to name, but couldn't deny either. The mansion came alive in the months that followed Oliver's first smile. William rearranged his work schedule, shocking his executive team when he announced he would be working from home 3 afternoons a week. The big corner office that had been his second home now sat empty more often than not, while his home office became the center of a new kind of productivity, one measured not in profits, but in moments. Mr. Chen from Tokyo is waiting on line 2. His assistant's voice came through the speaker on a warm Tuesday afternoon. Tell him I'll call back tomorrow, William replied, checking his watch. It's 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock had become sacred, the time when William joined Elena and Oliver in whatever activity they had planned for the day. Sometimes it was music therapy, with Elena playing guitar while William awkwardly attempted to follow along. Other days they went to the garden, where Oliver's smile now appeared more regularly, especially when butterflies or hummingbirds came near. Today, when William entered the living room at precisely 3, he found Elena sitting cross-legged on the floor with Oliver carefully positioned beside her, supported by cushions. "We're learning to talk to each other," Elena explained, gesturing to a board with pictures attached. "I noticed that Oliver's eyes focus longer on certain images when he has preferences." William watched in amazement as she held up 2 pictures, one of the garden, one of the music room, and watched Oliver's eyes. After a moment, his gaze settled on the garden image. "See that?" Elena said excitedly. "He's choosing. We're building our own language." William knelt down beside them, his expensive suit pants on the hardwood floor without a second thought, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. "Can I try?" he asked. Elena handed him 2 different cards, one with rain, one with sunshine. William held them up as she had done, speaking directly to Oliver. "Which do you prefer today, buddy? Rain or sun?" Oliver's eyes, once vacant, now clearly moved between the images before settling on the sunshine card. William felt a lump in his throat. "Good choice," he said softly. "It's beautiful outside. Should we go to the garden after this?" Oliver's mouth twitched upward, his smile becoming more frequent and recognizable with each passing week. The doctors who had once spoken only of limitations now used words like progress and surprising development. At the last medical appointment, the neurologist had actually asked Elena to explain her methods. "I don't really have methods," she had replied. "I just treat him like a person, not a condition." That approach had transformed not just Oliver, but the entire household. The staff who had once moved about the mansion with clinical efficiency now stopped to describe the day's weather to Oliver or show him interesting objects. William's sister Lily visited more often, commenting on the change in the home's atmosphere. "It doesn't feel like a hospital anymore," she told William one evening as they sat on the patio watching Elena push Oliver's wheelchair along the garden path. "It feels like a home." William nodded, his eyes following Elena's movements. "She changed everything," he admitted. Lily raised an eyebrow. "Just the house?" William didn't answer, but the color rising in his cheeks told Lily everything she needed to know. As summer turned to fall, William and Elena developed a partnership that went beyond employer and employee. They created a communication system tailored to Oliver's abilities, discovering he had preferences, opinions, and a keen intelligence that had been trapped behind his physical limitations. He liked classical music but not jazz. He enjoyed stories about animals but grew bored with fairy tales. He preferred the color blue over all others. With each new discovery, William felt he was truly meeting his son for the first time. "He has Anna's determination," William told Elena one evening as they reviewed Oliver's therapy progress. "She never gave up on anything either." Elena smiled. "You should tell him more stories about her. Children need to know where they come from." William began to do just that, sitting with Oliver each night before bedtime to share memories of Anna, her laugh, her stubbornness, her love of rainstorms and chocolate ice cream. Sometimes these stories brought tears, but they were healing tears, washing away the grief that had hardened around William's heart. One morning, William's phone chimed with a calendar reminder that made him pause. Tomorrow marked the 1-year anniversary of Anna's death. In previous years, he had locked himself in his office, buried in work to avoid the pain. This year felt different. At dinner that evening, he hesitantly broached the subject with Elena. "Tomorrow is a difficult day," he began. She nodded, already aware of the date. "What can I do to help?" William took a deep breath. "Actually, I was thinking we might take Oliver to the beach. Anna loved the ocean. I haven't been since..." He trailed off, unable to finish. "I think that's a beautiful idea," Elena said softly. The next morning dawned clear and mild. Perfect beach weather, as Anna would have said. William felt a familiar ache in his chest as he helped Elena prepare Oliver for the outing. But it was duller now, tempered by the new joy his son had brought into his life. The private beach below the cliffs had been one of Anna's favorite places. A winding path led down from the house, too steep for Oliver's wheelchair. Without hesitation, William lifted his son into his arms, carrying him while Elena brought a blanket and small cooler. "Your mom and I had our first date here," William told Oliver as they made their way down the path. "She beat me at skipping stones and never let me forget it." At the shore, they found a smooth spot to spread the blanket. Elena helped position Oliver so he could see the waves crashing against the rocks and feel the ocean breeze on his face. William stood at the water's edge, memories washing over him with each wave. "You okay?" Elena asked, coming to stand beside him. William nodded slowly. "I think I am. For the first time, I really am." He looked back at Oliver on the blanket, then at Elena beside him, this woman who had brought light back into their darkened world. The professional boundaries between them had blurred over the months of working together, caring for Oliver, sharing meals and concerns and small victories. "Elena," William began, then stopped, uncertain how to express what he was feeling. She turned to him, her eyes reflecting the ocean. "Yes? Thank you isn't enough," he said finally. "What you've done for Oliver, for both of us, I can never repay." Elena shook her head. "It was never about payment." "I know." William hesitated, then continued. "When Anna died, I thought that part of my life was over. I never expected to feel—" He gestured helplessly, unable to find the right words. Elena smiled gently. "Life surprises us sometimes." A happy sound from the blanket drew their attention. Oliver was smiling, his brightest smile yet, as he watched them standing together by the water. "I think he approves," Elena said softly. William looked at his son, then back at Elena. In that moment, with the sun warming their faces and the ocean stretching endlessly before them, he realized they had become something he never expected to find again, a family. With Oliver smiling his blessing from the blanket, William reached for Elena's hand, his fingers tentatively finding hers in the space between them. "I'd like to talk about the future," he said quietly. "Our future, if you want that too." Elena's fingers tightened around his, her answer in the warmth of her touch. "I think we've already started building it," she replied, nodding toward Oliver. "Together." As they stood hand in hand at the edge of the ocean that Anna had loved, William felt a sense of peace wash over him. This wasn't the life he had planned, but it was the one he had found. One filled with unexpected joy, hard-won smiles, and a love that had come when he least expected it. In his heart, he knew Anna would approve. She had always believed in second chances. And as he looked from Elena to Oliver and back again, William silently thanked his late wife for sending them the guardian angel they hadn't known they needed, someone who had taught them both how to smile again.